Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, July 1st. LA Galaxy getting a 3-0 win over the San Jose Earthquakes. Their winning streak continues now, 4 games in a row for the LA Galaxy, and it leads us all to Thursday night's matchup against LAFC, and maybe one of the most significant, one of the most anticipated El Traficos of all time, where the Galaxy will take on LAFC at the Rose Bowl. So we got a lot to get to, a lot to talk about. In order to do all that, we're glad to have him back. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Kevin Baxter. Kev, how you doing, bud?
All right, how are you?
Good. I think you should probably turn your camera on so that way everybody can see you. That would be...
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to do that.
There's a little button that has a camera on it, and then you hit it, and then it puts it on, and then you're like, oh, look, there I am.
Yeah, I saw that once.
Yeah.
Let me try that. Oh, hey, how's that? Did that do anything?
Wait,
there it is.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, man, I thought for a second we were just going to get to do it with the blue floating screen, but instead, you're back. You thought you weren't going to be here tonight. You were back, sir.
No, I was... the Copa America is going on, and I didn't get to go to the Copa America. Not that it matters now anyways, after tonight's result. But I went up to Northern California for the Western States 100. It's a 100-mile trail run. It's an unbelievable event. These people are absolutely phenomenal and also completely nuts to do this thing. But it was actually one of the most inspiring things I ever covered. A blind guy ran it. A blind guy ran 100 miles in 30 hours. It was incredible.
That's way more accomplished than anything you and I will ever do, for sure. 100%.
No, did I mention he was blind? And he ran on trails.
Yes.
It was insane.
That is awesome. Well, we're glad to have you back. A little late getting started, just trying to watch the end of that USA Uruguay game that now is over. I don't think it mattered in overall and everything that happened, especially with Panama and their result, but that was interesting. U.S. and Mexico both going home out of the group stage. As you told me, Kevin, you're going to have Panama and Canada being the CONCACAF representatives into the knockout round. So
that was not on my bingo card.
It was an interesting one. Hey, so that's why you play the games. Speaking of playing the games, somebody was talking and they were saying, oh, but the Galaxy really haven't shown that they can do it against good teams yet. And I went back and I started saying, one is, I think one of the main criticisms against the LA Galaxy for a while now, Kevin, is that they don't beat the teams they're supposed to beat, right? And so you go up to San Jose, which is a rivalry game. You get a 3-0 win. You do it at Stanford Stadium, which is a place that can be a little house of horrors. You do it after the San Jose Earthquakes fired their coach, and so you're getting this new coach bump coming from San Jose. And then you also get to return Riqui Puig back. You do all of that as the LA Galaxy, as San Jose had over, I think, 200 former members of the Earthquakes come back for this game and watch this. So it wasn't just a rivalry run at Stanford. It wasn't just a continuation of a winning streak. It was a 3-0 win in front of a historic 50-year celebration for San Jose. I don't know if the night could have gone any worse for San Jose and possibly any better for the LA Galaxy.
Well, we talked a lot on this show. We keep saying, oh, they've never won 3 games under Greg Vanney. They've never won 3 in a row under Greg Vanney. Now they have 3 shutouts in a row under Greg Vanney. That's the longest, and 278 scoreless minutes. That's the longest streak since 2016, Bruce Arena's last year. And you talk about they're not beating the teams they're supposed to beat. Hey, they have 1 loss in their last 11 games. They haven't lost since April.
Right.
So they actually are beating, or at least drawing, everybody that they play. And you talk about, some critics looking for little holes to pick at the Galaxy. I've said on the show a number of times that I don't feel that extra special thing that I've always felt around MLS Cup teams, MLS Supporter Shield teams. The Galaxy, they haven't felt like they have that extra oomph, that one spectacular player. Now, Riqui Puig is a great player, and I know we're going to talk about him a lot on this show, but he doesn't feel like that player. He's a very good player, but he doesn't feel like that guy that takes them to the next level. I'm beginning to think Gabriele Peck might be that guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to have to talk yourself in circles after the game that Riqui Puig had in the second half. Absolutely dominated. And listen, should dominate San Jose. But remember, San Jose coming off of this new coach bump, they certainly had the energy. They certainly had the effort to come in there. So this had trap game written all over it. I think we talked about that, before they played this particular game. So let's talk a little bit about the game. We'll dive into it, and we'll have lots of stuff to talk about as we go along, as we get you ready for El Trafico as well. So lots of little nuggets to come in here. But your goal scorers, Joseph Painsil, Dejan Jovalic, and Mauricio Cuevas, his first MLS goal as well. And so we're going to talk about all that. Starting lineup for the LA Galaxy, John McCarthy in goal. John McCarthy, by the way, as you pointed out, 3 consecutive shutouts, 278 scoreless minutes. Last time the Galaxy had 3 consecutive shutouts was in July of 2016. That was 2-0 win over Vancouver, 1-0 win over Seattle, and a 1-0 win over Houston back in Bruce Arena days. And by the way, that was one of the main winning streaks that entire year, Kevin, if you looked at it, because the 2016 team was the team that had almost every game was a draw. And so that was actually one of their few real good winning streaks in that 2016 season.
And by the way, that's 5 clean sheets this year for John McCarthy. It's 3 off his career high last year at LAFC.
Yeah, listen, he is as much as we have talked, I think, about him. And some of the stuff that is good and some of the stuff that is bad around him, he has stepped up. And if you go and look at the XG in this game, you can see that San Jose actually had the higher XG in this game, so the expected goals, thanks in large part to what John McCarthy was able to do. Actually, and quite a difference. The LA Galaxy, with their defense starting to show up, the set piece defense starting to be better. Everything is starting to be better for the LA Galaxy.
Do you think the return of Jalen Neal has something to do with that?
Yes, I mean, it certainly, and I think the stats prove that out, that the LA Galaxy, I think, have had, is it 3 of their shutouts with Jalen Neal as the center back in there? And I believe that there may even be a streak there. I was getting text messages as we were rolling through here, just checking things out. Okay, but no. You look at the Galaxy starting lineup. Now, they didn't start Riqui Puig, and we thought that they wouldn't, Kevin, because he's still coming off of his return to play. After seeing him play for a half, you can bet your bottom dollar that he'll be starting against LAFC come July 4th. But you had Dejan Jovalic up top. You had Fagundes reprising his role. You had Gabriele Peck and Joseph Painsil. You had Cerrillo. You had Delgado, Julian Alde, Maya Yoshida, Jalen Neal, Miki Imane, and John McCarthy back there. So they repeated the lineup, and then what happened is in the second half, they pulled Joseph Painsil off. And the reason they pulled him off is that he was having trouble with some coughing and some other stuff in the dry air. So they wanted to be sure that they got him off. The Aude sub, whenever Nelson came in, and by the way, everybody should start paying attention to what John Nelson is able to do for this LA Galaxy team. If Julian Aude can't play, John Nelson will be ready. But Julian Aude, I have to say it right, Julian Aude, with a groin issue. And so they're precautionary on that as well. That's something to watch for July 4th, and that goes. It's mostly been something that's been bothering him after games, and in this particular case, it was aggravated during the game. So we're going to see if he can progress through that as well.
What kind of issue is that again?
Groin. I know how to say it.
No, it's growing. It's growing.
No, I know how to say it.
Greg Vanny.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, by the way, a $10 super chat, and it's a crying emoji, and it says national team on it. I have a feeling that really, it could be a Mexico fan or a United States fan with the way that's going. Probably, unless those are tears of joy, maybe it's a Canadian national team fan, right? I mean,
he could be. Well, or it could be a Bolivian fan.
It could
Bolivia
be.
Bolivia was supposed to make a little bit of noise in this tournament.
Yeah,
or was it Ecuador? One of those two.
Yeah, I think it was probably Ecuador. It was probably Ecuador with the way that Bolivia played. But thank you for that super chat. Appreciate that. So we go into this game. You look at the players that have played in this. The big deal here is the LA Galaxy playing through their transitions, Kevin. And Greg Vanny talked after the game, and I thought he was pretty funny whenever he said it. Sophie asked him about the transition goal that they were able to score that first goal, and it comes off of a San Jose corner and a ball that had hung around for sort of that second and third chance. There was a layoff pass that Obobisi might have gotten to had the pass actually been to him. But instead, the pass was slightly to his right or left. I can't remember exactly which way he was facing. He was not able to track it down. And all of a sudden, what played out is possibly the longest give and go in soccer history, which is Joseph Paintsel putting the ball out to Gabriele Peck. Gabriele Peck streaking down for about 50, 60, 70 yards and putting a perfect pass across to Paintsel again. And those were your transition goals. We've talked about the LA Galaxy getting the speed on the wings, Kevin. This is the way I think that Greg Vanney has always sort of wanted to play, with the speed on the wings, able to counter whenever they get the chance, able to play in those transition games. You get a wonderful run out by Gabriele Peck. By the way, I like your shout out on him. He has, they were just asking for player of the month for this year for the LA Galaxy and if you're not voting Gabriele Peck, you haven't been watching the games.
No, 3 goals and 6 assists in the last 7 games. So that's 9 goal contributions in 7 games.
This is a guy, Kevin, I think we can agree, is not fully settled yet, is not fully into his, this is how he's going to play. If we look into our magic, magic 8 ball, and we look into that crystal ball, we look into next year, what is Gabriele Peck going to be next year? And I think that the Galaxy understood very well from the very beginning what they were trying to get out of Gabriele Peck. And I think that he is paying them back in spades. The way that he played in this game, outstanding. Clean, quick, decisive, and he has been playing that way. Just finding goals whenever he can, making the right pass whenever he needs to. Just an absolute team player that plays very well inside of Greg Vanney's system. And for me, he could be that difference maker that you're talking about. I would argue right now, however, that after watching that San Jose game, if you didn't think Riqui Puig is the difference maker, then maybe did you watch the second half with your eyes closed? Is that what it was?
No, well, my point is I think he's a great player, but I mean, you look at Fagundes, they're undefeated in his 12 starts, 7-0-5. I'm not saying Fagundes is a better player. I'm just saying there are different combinations, there are different things that work in different ways with different combinations. There's no question that Riqui Puig is the best player on the Galaxy and probably one of the handful of best players in the league. But I'm just not sure he's the guy that gets them over, that is the difference maker like a Gabriele Peck is. I'm just not sure that he is that guy that turns them into an MLS Cup team. Now, I don't think they're an MLS Cup team without him, but he's his 3rd year here and they haven't really won like they are now. This is the first time they've done that. Ricky's been here the last couple of years. Why are they doing different this year? Is it because Riqui has matured, or is it because the combination of Gabriele Peck and a confident Dejan Joveljic and Joseph Paintsel, is that what's made the difference? There's a million different ways to answer that question.
Yes.
I'm not denying that Ricky's great. I'm just saying that I don't know that he's the one that makes the difference for them to go from where they were last year to where they are this year.
Greg Vanney after the game, quoting, coincidentally, as we shifted the way we were going to defend, they shifted the way they were going to attack to the opposite side. That would create a little bit of a problem for us until we were able to get resituated. And that kind of coincided defensively also with Riqui Puig coming on and changing the game on the attacking side. He took the game to another level and another speed. And I think there shouldn't be too many comments on whether this team is better with or without Riqui. I think that's nonsense. He just proved today that his capacity and his quality makes our team great, right? We can be a really good team. We could be really good, but he helps to make our team great. So I was happy for him because he certainly changed the game, and the next 2 goals that really put the game away came from him. So I was happy for him tonight, Greg Vanney after the game. Certainly a clap back at all of the talking heads. I think Alex and I last week started to talk about it, and I think Hammer and I probably talked about it too, I didn't think there was any doubt that when Riqui Puig came back, the Galaxy would play better. I thought that was an overreach by people who haven't been paying attention. I think that Riqui Puig can play very well within the system. I thought he played within the system last night very well. I think the only criticism is that he can give up the ball in bad situations sometimes. Okay, but he can also play some of the most beautiful things. You're going to live and die with that. It doesn't matter. And if Riqui Puig, if you are having the biggest game, Kevin, if you're in an MLS Cup, Riqui Puig is starting for the LA Galaxy, no doubt.
Oh, yeah, no one's doubting that. But I mean, he missed 2.5 games, correct?
Yes.
2.5 games. So he missed in those 2.5 games that he missed. They didn't give up a goal.
Yep.
And they didn't give up a goal in the half that he played.
Yep.
But they're among they're middle of the table in goals allowed this season.
13.
And they have 2.5 shutouts. Well, 3 shutouts in 3 games. Riqui misses 2.5 of those games. I'm not trying to tear down Riqui. I'm just saying that there are other people that contribute to this as well. I mean, Gabriele Peck wasn't here last year. Joseph Paintsil wasn't here last year. Dejan Joveljic was on the bench a lot of last year. John McCarthy wasn't here last year. And the team did not play well. Riqui Puig was here. I think he's a difference maker. I just think he works better with these other guys, whether they take some of the pressure off him, whether they create more opportunities for him, whether he creates opportunities for them. I'm not really sure what the combination is, but this combination is much better than the combination they had last year, and Peck and Paintsil weren't here last year.
Yeah. Galaxy right now have a plus 14 goal differential. That's 5th best in the major league in MLS. Only Miami, LAFC, RSL, and Columbus are above them in that.
And they're
goal
second in
differential.
goals. They're second in goals scored, 41.
Tied second in goals behind Miami and tied with LAFC. They both have 41 goals for as they go into El Trafico. So looking at that, going back and looking at some of the players, I thought Dejan Joveljic had a pretty good night. I thought Diego Fagundes was good. Joseph Paintsil showed what he could do, and with his speed, and finally got sort of back on that scoreboard, back on that score sheet, finding some rhythm, finding a groove. I thought Cerrillo had another good night. Listen, you can go through, and I looked at the FOTMob scores of everybody. They had Gabriele Peck as the best player on the night, 7.9. There is not a Galaxy starter that is under 7.0, and that was Aude, and Aude got subbed at the 46th minute at halftime. So everybody else was above the 7.0. As a matter of fact, I don't think anybody else is below a 7.3. John McCarthy, 7.9, tied with Gabriele Peck for the night. And looking at the shots that he saved and the way he's been, Kevin, you talked about John McCarthy. You said what you get with John McCarthy is you get a guy who will absolutely make the big shots, but he's going to cost you some in there as well. He's going to make these mistakes, and you have to get used to it. Is he growing out of that? Are we seeing that? Or is the Galaxy defense learning to pick him up? What do you make over the 3-game stretch with no goals allowed?
I think there's a lot of it. I mean, what did he have, 5 or 6 saves against San Jose? It's one of his better games this season. I think you're right about the return of Jalen Neal, and unfortunately, we may get a chance to test that. They're going to announce the Olympic team on Monday. Jalen Neal may be going to Paris for a while, so he'd miss probably most of the second half of July.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens.
The Galaxy do not have to release him. Let's be very clear. They do not have to release him for that. I don't know what that would do, but I know that they do not have to release him. I don't think
there's any way they don't release him.
I'm just saying.
But he may not go because, when he went up for their... Yeah, when he went up for their only friendly, he didn't even play. So
and it's an 18-man roster too. For there's nobody.
Either they know everything they needed to know about him, or he wasn't in the mix, so they didn't play him. But I think the defense has gotten a little better. I think John McCarthy's gotten comfortable with the system. One of his big problems has always been playing the ball out of the back, and he seemed to sort of lose the yips over that a little bit, and is necessarily. I think they altered the way they want him to distribute the ball, and I think that's helped. It's helped clear his mind. I don't think I think he thought a lot about that and was uncomfortable doing some of the things they asked him to do, and I think they simplified it. I think that's probably helped. One of the things with John McCarthy and some of the kind of goofy things that he does, they're actually kind of endearing, and I think they actually make him a good teammate and a good player. But I also think this is the second year in a row that he's been the starter, and he lost the starting job at the end of last season when Max Grupo came back. He's got it this year. I think it's a confidence issue too. He doesn't have to look over his shoulder. He doesn't have to think, I've only got, a game and a half, and then the starter comes back and I'm out of here. I've got to prove myself. I think he feels like really confident. And by the way, when you're talking about all the great stuff that Riqui Puig does, we haven't even mentioned he's an all-star, and he was one of the players voted in. The all-star team has 30 players for MLS. They're going to play Liga MX, and Liga MX only gets 26. I don't know why MLS gets 30, but I thought the way they put the team together was very interesting, and Riqui Puig figures in this. 12 players of the 30 were chosen by fan, player, and media voting. 16 players were chosen by Wilfred Nancy, who is the Columbus coach, who will be the coach of the MLS team. And then 2 were chosen by Commissioner Don Garber. So what you really want to do is you want to be that guy voted in by the players, the fans, and the media, your peers essentially, and the fans, vote you in. They want to see you in that game. Riqui Puig was one of those 12 players. Denis Bouanga, who's the Golden Boot winner, was not. He was not one of those guys voted in. So Riqui Puig, I think that's a real feather in his cap that his peers say, you know what, you're one of the best players in the league. So when you're talking about what he means to the Galaxy and whether he's, a great player and whether he makes a difference, I think, the players and media and fans for the other 29 teams just told you that they think he is.
Yeah, very could be. Jose, $20 super chat. Thank you for that, Jose. He says, Paintsel looked visibly upset coming out and was not engaged while sitting on the bench, head down while the goals are being celebrated. This isn't the first time he looks upset. Any concerns long-term? Great show as always. Thank you. No, and I think the chat room has nailed it. He is an extremely uber competitive guy. And he shoulders a lot of responsibility. And if he doesn't score, if he doesn't play the way that he thinks he could play, or if he needs to come out early because he was coughing and wasn't, then that's going to affect sort of his mood. He's, I think back in 2022, Kevin, we talked about the Galaxy being very emotional, right? And I think Paintsel is an extension of sort of that emotional player. And you just have to watch him. You just have to make sure that you're always pumping him up, that you're always understanding where his mindset is at and how he goes about things, because you're not going to find a guy who is, more competitive. He's a very competitive guy. And so he's going to want to be in there. He wants to be fighting. And so if he's not playing 90 minutes every game, then I think he feels like that's a failure. That being said, they need a lot of breaks. They need to get him his legs as many breaks as they can. And what we're asking from the LA Galaxy for so many games here, Kevin, and I've been begging and pleading, is put a game away. Make it not a game. Make it easy. And I think the Galaxy did that in this game. And, I will also point out the only other game that they were able to do that, I think, was the 3-1 game against San Jose earlier in the season. But by the way, 3 games against San Jose, Kevin, that's 9 points. That's a season sweep of San Jose. That's pretty nice. Whenever you start sweeping things, like what you did against RSL, which is you drew with them and then you won. That means that you won the season series. When you start winning season series like that, those things start to add up. And I would be I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't point out once again the Galaxy have only lost 3 times this entire year. Something that is growing more and more rare throughout Major League Soccer. So what you're seeing from the Galaxy is an exceptionally good start. As a matter of fact, this LA Galaxy team is off to the second best start since 2010, third best start overall through 21 games, 40 points now. 43 points they had in 2010 through 21 games, and 46 points in the shootout era and all that fun stuff in 1998. So modern era, this is the second best. And I will also point out, Kevin, that if we look at all of the MLS Cup winning teams, this team right now, this 2024 team, is above those standings for any of those MLS Cup winning teams. They actually have a better record than the best MLS Cup winning team.
Well, and think about the last couple of years when we've been sitting here on this podcast talking about, probably 44 or 45 points ought to get you in the playoffs. The Galaxy got 40 already, and they've got several months to go. Oh, by the way, Jovic's goal was his 12th. We've been talking all season about how 15 is the target. So I think we're going to have to adjust that because he's going to score more than 3 goals over the rest of the season. And the Galaxy, what are the 3 losses they have a chance to avenge on Thursday, because one of the 3 losses was to LAFC at BMO.
Right.
This time, how does this really go down? Because both LAFC and the Galaxy are unbeaten at home. The 2 of the 3 unbeaten. New York City is the only other unbeaten. I think it's New York City, right? The only other unbeaten team. Maybe it's the Red Bulls, but in any case, they're the only 2 unbeaten teams in the Western Conference at home. Is this a home game for the Galaxy, or a home game for LAFC? I know the Galaxy are kind of organizing the ticket sales and stuff, or does it count as neutral?
I mean, it's a home game. I mean, that's what they're going to call it on the schedule, which will be weird as usual whenever it comes to these things. And technically speaking, it should have been LAFC's home game this year as well. MLS really seemed to pull out the stops in order to get that going. But no, it's this is one of those times where you're like, okay, this is where Kevin, I don't think we've ever had this build up. That's the whole thing is, when in any of El Trafico histories have we ever had 2 first place? We haven't. 2 first place teams in the Western Conference going at each other. When even talking about the winning streaks that both are on right now, the LA Galaxy are on a 4-game winning streak.
Well, one loss in the last 11, and LAFC is unbeaten in 9. That's the longest streak in the league right now.
Yeah, and they're winners out of the 8 out of the last 9, right? So it wasn't, they drew Austin in Austin. That was their one outside. So when was the last time we've seen that type of matchup between these two? I think the answer is never, but does that matter at this point too? I want to know what happens if either of these teams lose this game. Is that changing anything for the last 13 games for the LA Galaxy, 14 games for LAFC?
Well, and the two of the hottest goalkeepers too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lloris is playing really well, he's come down to earth a little bit. John McCarthy is still soaring, and former LAFC goalkeeper. So there's just a lot to this game. I'm hearing ticket sales. The MLS told me when I was back in New York in May, I went to MLS offices, and they were all talking about this game and said that the last year's attendance, remember 82,110 MLS record for a single game. They were all talking about how that record was going to fall this year. They were very excited. I'm hearing now that the Galaxy are talking about just getting over 70,000. So, with maybe walk-ups, people getting interested at the last minute, they could get to 75, which would be the second largest crowd in MLS history. Right now, the second largest crowd is 74 and change. That was, I believe, the Galaxy's game at Charlotte's first game. So they need to get to just over 74.8 or 74.9 to beat that record. I think they have a chance to do that. I think the 82 is probably out of reach.
It takes 2 to tango. Just remember that as we get ready for that, right? This is 2 fan bases coming together in order to set this record, because you can't do it just on one. I don't think that's gonna happen. So let's get to some super chats here as well. Adam, $20 super chat. Appreciate that, Adam. Thank you. Hey guys, I know we wouldn't want our players in the All-Star game, but at least Yamane should have been in consideration for the All-Star game this year. He's been outstanding. LAFC has 2 players selected, but were selected by the coach, correct? I thought Yamane would be in there. Quite honestly, I am still an Aude fan as well. Julian Aude is one of my favorite players to watch, and I like seeing both the outside backs playing well for the Galaxy. I thought Yamane would also be there, at least in contention. But again, there has to be a real grassroots level in order to get, sort of this support coming that has to come. And there's lots of smart LA Galaxy fans out there who are like, I'm not voting for any of the LA Galaxy players. That is not happening. I won't do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want, my players playing in a meaningless game on July 24th. And that has been the position of this podcast, by the way, for a very long time, which is it's a meaningless game and you don't want your players in it.
It's not just the game. They have to fly there, right? And it's kind of squeezed into a very narrow window, and you have Leagues Cup coming up right after it.
Isn't that
so
nice?
You fly there, you have all kinds of media responsibilities. There's sponsored things to do. There's it's not like you go there and stay in your hotel room until it's game time. You're just on the move constantly. I've never done it, obviously. I've never been an MLS All-Star.
But you were on the edge a couple times, though,
I was close. They had a different voting system then. But I would imagine it's exhausting. The travel and then all the demands that you have when you're there. And you're by yourself. When you travel, when the Galaxy travel for an away game, there's equipment managers and stuff that handle a lot of the things. People arrange their hotel stays and all. You're by yourself. If you need something, you got to take care of it yourself. And I think it could be extremely exhausting. And it comes right in the middle of the season, now right before Leagues Cup, probably the worst time of the year to have it.
Usually they send a PR person with them. There's usually somebody there too. Like they get one person that sort of maybe might help them out. But you're right. There's not a traveling contingent. Let's go to Andrew, $5 super chat. Andrew, good to see you as always. How many goals does Dayon need to get respect from everyone? I still see people call for someone to come in and replace him. Oh yeah. I mean, let's be very clear. Who's the leader? Right? Is that 16 goals is leading right now? And Dayon has 12? I think that's the Golden Boot. Is at 16? I think, isn't it? Is it Cucho or Chicho? I can't remember who is in the front. I'll have to look. You can look while I'm talking.
I'll look.
But we were talking Dejan Joveljic now. Here's the problem, Andrew, and this is at least from my perspective. The problem is that he's not scoring the bangers, right? He's doing what he's heading balls back in after they come off the crossbar. He's doing that. He's doing all the things you want to see him do. And by the way, that's not a knock. And if you watch him play, like all of us do on a regular basis, you see how hard he works. You see how involved he is with everything. So for how many goals does it? You know what? He has to be right up there near the end, right up there near the lead for anybody to pay any attention. And people are going to be like, man, he came out of nowhere for it if it happens.
Well, you're going to like this. Christian Chicho Arango does lead the league with 16 goals, and Boenga is third with 13. Dejan Joveljic is in sixth place here. He's actually there's a tie. Mm-hmm. There are 3 players at 12.
Right.
Luis Suarez, Bogus from LAFC, and then Dejan Joveljic at 12. There's one other player tied at 12. I don't know if you've heard of him, a guy named Messi.
No, that guy
plays for Inter Miami. So Joveljic has as many goals as Lionel Messi this deep into the season.
Andrew, if he for some reason finishes level with goals as on Messi, he should get a T-shirt that said "scored as many goals as Messi," or if you score one more, it's like scored one more goal than Messi, that type of thing. They should hand out keychains or something for that,
But to answer his question, yeah, he's tied with Messi. He should be getting a lot more attention than he's getting. But this is the Galaxy problem, throughout their history. There's always been big name stars, and we have Gabriele Peck and we have Riqui Puig and guys who are getting some attention, and maybe Joveljic is a little under the radar. That happened, when you had Juninho and Sarvis, and those guys were great players and made a difference for the team, but everyone talked about Landon Donovan and Robbie Keane as they should be. So I think if Joveljic gets to 20 goals, and especially if he finishes around Messi, you can't make, obviously Messi is the greatest player in the league, and he's established that over his career. But if Joveljic finishes close to Messi and has 20 goals, the secret should be out by then.
Yeah, you would think. And by the way, the only right answer to that is for Dejan to keep scoring goals, right? Like you just keep putting them in. It doesn't matter how they go in it. Didn't Chris Wondolowski win an MVP one year, or win a Golden Boot one year off of rebounds and knocking stuff in? Wondolowski's almost entire career was sort of that type of thing. Dejan Joveljic has a chance to just pile in a bunch of goals. I don't care how they happen. I don't care how they go in. I don't care if they bounce off his rear end and go into the back of the net. The bottom line is he's being in the right place at the right time. He's dangerous. He's drawing attention. Whenever you have Paintsel and Peck and Puig and Joveljic all together, all overlapping, with Delgado in there, with Fagundes in there, you could add some of those guys in there. Whenever you have that many scoring threats, it's hard to sort of put your finger on it. And maybe this goes to the LA Galaxy's advantage, Kevin, but there is no one true star for the LA Galaxy right now. And if you want to say it's Riqui Puig, which I would say you're probably right, it probably is the guy who gets the most attention for things, he's impossible to stop. I don't know if you heard the announcers whenever they were playing against San Jose, but they were gushing about Riqui Puig because Riqui was doing things that, quite honestly, not a lot of people in Major League Soccer can do. Being able to turn in space, being able to run and accelerate and get away from 3-4 players, being able to open up runs, drawing attention, passing the ball out. I mean, I think we nitpick too much on Riqui Puig and what he's able to do because he's clearly an MLS All-Star. He's clearly probably, and again, there were a bunch of talking heads that got it wrong again whenever they were putting their All-Star stuff together, and they were like, I don't know if I can put Riqui Puig in that attacking midfield. I'm like, you're talking about individual talent going against Liga MX in a team that isn't going to have a philosophy. If Riqui Puig isn't your starting guy, you did something wrong. And so for me, Riqui Puig should start the All-Star game, should be that center midfielder whenever it all goes, and he should probably play about 30 minutes, and if he plays any more than 45 minutes, there should be a riot.
Well, another thing with Joveljic is he does get overshadowed by players. I mean, Riqui Puig came in with the big hype machine coming from Barcelona. Dejan did not have that. But a long or a decent playoff run by the Galaxy, they don't have to make it to MLS Cup, but that would certainly help. But if they get 2 or 3 games in, they're on national TV, a lot of people watching those playoff games, the announcers are going to have to, whether they want to or not, they'll talk about Riqui Puig and they'll talk about Gabriele Peck, but they're going to say, and the leading scorer on this team is Dejan Joveljic. And let's look at what he's done. Oh, look, he scored as many goals as Messi this year. I think that's going to change. If the Galaxy get some of that, I know they're one of the biggest teams in the league, one of the premier franchises, but if they can have some of the national TV and media focus during the playoffs, people are going to notice that Dejan Joveljic is there and he's the guy that's scoring the goals.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's more attention coming to this LA Galaxy team. So again, we start to look a little bit through some of this stuff and looking at the results the LA Galaxy have had. Let's talk real quick about the LA Galaxy in terms of designated players. 75.7% of total available minutes have been played by the LA Galaxy designated players. That is the most by a wide margin, which was almost 63%. It's at 75% right now. So more than a 10%, 12, 13% margin of increase. And by the way, last year it was sub 50%. So you're getting over 25, almost 23, or almost 26, 27% increase in the available minutes that you're getting out of your designated players. Who would have known that would be so important? Everybody. That's the fun part about it. Looking at the LA Galaxy's record percent, this is the one where we look at the LA Galaxy's record in terms of win percentage, loss percentage, and then what I call the point percentage, which is you get a point or better. The LA Galaxy, 52.4% win percentage. So the LA Galaxy, over 50% of the games, Kevin, the LA Galaxy have gotten a win in. In 85.7% of the games, the LA Galaxy have either gotten a win or a draw, and their losing percentage right now is just 14.3% with 13 games remaining in Major League Soccer. That's something to sort of pay attention to. The away record has been outstanding. The LA Galaxy now at 19 points. They had 12 points all of last year, and in 2022, a year where I felt they did pretty good on the road, they had 22 total points. So the Galaxy went away on the road from tying that 2022, which was the high water mark going all the way back to 2012, it looks like, where they had 23. So LA Galaxy are starting to do things that are a little bit more historic than perhaps we have given them credit for. Home points right now averaging 2.33 points per game at home, 21 total points, 24 total points all of last year at home for the LA Galaxy, 28 total points in 2022. Galaxy now just 7.7 home points away from matching their 2022 total. Right? We don't always like to compare things to last year, Kevin, because last year was a bit of a dumpster fire. So let's look outside that on occasion, so that way we can understand where everything is coming from. You want to see it grouped together, so that way you see 21 home points, 19 away points. That's where the LA Galaxy currently stand with their 40 points. We already talked about the start and how it's the LA Galaxy's second best start in the modern era. 2010, they had 43 points through 21 games. That's interesting. We'll pay attention to that. The LA Galaxy currently averaging 1.90 points per game. The average across their 29-year history, 1.50 points per game. So that's an interesting one as well. Let's see. LA Galaxy goals. This one is something, Kevin. I think we need to focus a little bit on it. Right now, the LA Galaxy have scored 41 goals. Last year, they scored 51 goals. They are 10 goals away from matching their total from last year with 13 games to play. The LA Galaxy allowed 67 goals last year, Kevin, which was a tremendous amount. I mean, quite honestly, it probably could have been higher, closer to 70. They tied for the worst, which was 2017, but we also know that 2020 was a shortened year, and that one actually averaged over 70 goals if you played it out over 34 games. So 2020, 2017, 2023, all horrible defensive years. The LA Galaxy currently at 27 goals right now. So that would be a 40 goal difference as of right now with still 13 games to play. We can predict this out, though, Kevin. Right now, it says the LA Galaxy are going to score 66.4 goals and give up 43.7 goals. So the 43 or 44 goals, let's call it 44, you would have to go back to 2016 where the LA Galaxy gave up 39 goals to understand where the LA Galaxy defense is doing right now. Maybe Greg Vandy finally has a Does it feel like the defense is getting better, Kevin? Do we feel like there has been improvement from watching them game over game, that the defense has gotten better?
Yeah, and I feel like it's a lot deeper too. There's not that big drop off when someone else comes in, and I think John McCarthy is really, it's sort of become a very big part of that defense. I like the plus 22 goal differential too, which is what you're projecting over the full season.
Yeah, but not only that. So if we go and let's see, do I have the goal differential chart? Because I want to pull it out. I do. Here it is right now, plus 14 as it stands right now. If it was plus 22, only 2014, which had a plus 32 goal differential, by the way, would have been better through most of the modern era, all the way back until you'd have to go to 98 again. 41 was your goal differential. So LA Galaxy starting to pull away a little bit. I got a text message with some defensive talkings here. The LA Galaxy posted their 6th clean sheet of the season as a club in the 3-0 shutout over San Jose on June 29th. In the Galaxy's first 10 games to begin the 2024 campaign, LA allowed 17 goals. In LA's last 11 matches, played dating back to May 5th, the Galaxy have allowed 10 goals and have posted 5 shutouts during the span. This is going back to May 5th, so all of these are May 5th goals. Where did the LA Galaxy rank in goals allowed since May 5th? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're fifth right now with 10 goals allowed. LAFC with 7, Charlotte and Nashville with 8, and Columbus with 9. Dating back to May 5th, where did the Galaxy rank in MLS in goals scored? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 8th right now. LAFC has scored 23 goals. The LA Galaxy has scored 20 goals. RSL also with 23. Inter Miami with 22. New York Red Bulls with 22. Colorado Rapids with 22, Columbus Crew with 22, FC Cincinnati with 21, the Galaxy at 20. The largest positive goal differentials since May 5th is the LA Galaxy are third, LAFC 16, Columbus with 13, and the LA Galaxy with plus 10. A lot of LAFC stats in there as well. If you wanted to just pay attention to how well LAFC are playing, pay attention to those stats, because these two teams are coming in red hot when they go up against each other.
Well, yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, how big is this LAFC game? And let me make my argument, and then you can answer it. You just went through a whole bunch of numbers of how great the Galaxy are and how this is a special season and how this is better than recent seasons, certainly best in Greg Vanney era, maybe best going back to certainly going back to Bruce Arena. They look like a playoff team. They're borderline, supporter shield contender, maybe a cup contender. All these things going in their favor, undefeated at home. But every stat you mentioned, they're either tied or just behind LAFC, one of only 3 teams to beat them this year. So as good as the Galaxy must feel about themselves, 3 straight shutouts, top of the table, 1 loss since April, all these positive numbers that show they're trending well above anything they've done in recent history. If they go in and lose the second time to LAFC, their inner city rival, what does that do? Do you think then players begin to say, you know what, maybe we're not as good as all these numbers show, or this is a team we just can't get past no matter what, and gosh, if we meet them in the playoffs, we're going to be in trouble? How big is this game? Because I know we've got several months to go, but this does seem like a game that is one of those games that is that someone's going to plant the flag at this game, and it's going to carry on through into the playoffs.
See, that's the whole thing is I think there is a reaction. I think that there is something. I think the loser from this game can go on and be perfectly fine. That's as important as this game seems like it's going to be. You know the concept of like insignificant numbers. Like whenever you're adding on to like decimal, like whenever you're doing a math problem and you divide something by something, you get like a dot and then there's like 13 or 14 decimals and you're like, well, I'm just going to take it to the 2. Like if you keep adding those decimals on the end, some of those can be like insignificant numbers or insignificant decimals, right? You're in there. You're adding a specificity to something that maybe doesn't need it, and this game feels sort of like that, which is this is going to be a hotly contested game. It's in El Trafico. It's one of the biggest games in soccer, and currently with the Euros going on and with Copa America, it's the biggest club game in the world, mostly because MLS is one of the few that is playing club games right now. That being said, it's going to be matched only by a Western Conference final that features these two eventually, and I think that that's really where this is going to be played and set up. Right now, I think you're sort of arguing for a little bit of bragging rights. I think if you win this game, either team, if you win this game, you get to beat your chest and say, we're number 1 right now. It won't matter past the weekend because you have other games to play and do other things, but you beat your chest and you say, we're the best, and maybe it gives you a confidence boost and maybe it carries you. You lose this game, I think it sets you up even more for what is to come still. There's another El Trafico still to be played. There's going to be playoffs, it looks like. Although that's never guaranteed. There's going to be playoffs. It's important that you acquit yourself well of this game. You must do well in this game. You must be competitive. You must show energy. You must show the inability to be flustered. You need to have a full team performance from either of these teams to get wherever you are. The result matters probably less. All right. I know people think that's crazy. I was actually talking to Hammer about this. I have a crazy theory that I'm not even going to share because I just want that text message to live on his phone. And then someday, whenever it comes true, he's able to go ahead and put that out whenever I called it about these. But I think these are 2 of the best teams in the Western Conference. You throw in Real Salt Lake in there, I think you have the top 3 teams in the Western Conference. I think that these 3 teams are going to see each other in the playoffs, and I think that nothing's going to be settled in the regular season between these. So as much as I want to say it is absolutely the biggest El Trafico in terms of the 2 teams that are coming into it, the the winning streaks they're on, the way that they're playing, all of these things that we see that have sort of stacked up to these two sort of giant of a teams. And if you're paying attention to the stats and all that, the LA Galaxy might be underdogs in this, right? But I don't think we've ever had an El Trafico where both teams were firing on all cylinders, Kevin, and that's what makes this special. I just don't think it will have long-lasting effects with 13 games still left in the season. I think if you lose this game, you can certainly come back and have success in the playoffs. If you win this game, it doesn't mean that you're getting anything. There is going to be a battle down the stretch these last 13, 14 games.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I just think if LAFC were to win, it gives them a little bit extra skip in their step. It doesn't mean it doesn't change really the way these teams play the rest of the season, but it does kind of put something in the back of their minds when if these two teams meet in the playoffs, like, hey, we faced off against you guys when you guys were at your best and we were still able to beat you. And then the Galaxy, there might be some people in the Galaxy locker room that look at this and say, oh my God, we're just pounding everybody. And we can't get past this one team. The Galaxy have fewer losses, as we talked about. The Galaxy have fewer losses than LAFC. Yep. And LAFC has one more win, but right. They're tied on points. So, and as you just went through all the numbers, they're so even in everything else right. that, I just think right now it's a mind game. It's not going to determine anything. It's not going to determine playoff pairings. You might look back and say, oh, if the Galaxy fall a point behind and have to open on the road, which seems unlikely, maybe they look back at these games. I don't think it's going to be a matter of the standings. I just think it's a little confidence thing. You want to beat your rivals for one, but when you guys are that even and you're going to face each other in the playoffs, you'd really like to plant a seed in their minds, like, right. We can beat you. We know we have the combination. We know how to do it.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. It's like in baseball, if you ever played, right? And you went and swept somebody in the regular season, and then you're like, oh well, does that mean you have their number in the playoffs? No. If anything, I always think that if you have some sort of weird record against somebody going into a playoff situation, that gives you more of a reason, more motivation, more focus. I sort of like the underdog stories a lot, right? So, the U.S. hockey team goes out and gets trashed by the Russians just before the Olympics starts, right? And then they go out and they get the win eventually in Russia in that game, right? So like there's reasons that you could sort of put these things together and create a narrative that gets you to where you want to go. Mr. Provino, by the way, $5 super chat. Tom Bogert mentioned that MLS Cup contenders should be judged on wins, not on avoiding losses. Are we at that point with the LA Galaxy? Look at the wins. RSL, New York City, FC, just the recent ones and recently good teams. Now you're going up against, again, one of the top teams in the Western Conference. You're tied with them for the first. If the Galaxy get a win here, does that put the LA Galaxy as MLS Cup contenders if they win at the Rose Bowl? I'm adding all that other stuff. Thank you, Mr. Provino. Certainly appreciate that.
Well, the other thing is this, remember too, this Galaxy team, when you talk about, setting things up for the playoffs and planting seeds in people's minds and all those things I just talked about, this Galaxy team will not have Gaston Bergman, will not have Royce, if he ever comes. Marco Royce will not be there if he ever comes. Right. This is not the Galaxy team that LAFC would be facing in the playoffs anyways. That team could be completely different.
Flip side,
or largely different.
Flip side is the same, right? The LA Galaxy facing off against an LAFC team that's supposed to be adding Giroux coming in, right? It's different team. Yeah. These are going to be, there is one more matchup between these two teams. That could be more of a what does this look like in the postseason type thing. And
that's going to be in September, and it would be, I believe, right? September?
I think so.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, looking ahead a little bit, you talk about all the changes they're going to have, whether Royce comes, Bergman comes back. Certainly Olivier Giroux completely changes that team. It'll be interesting to see how those teams play it, where they are in the standings, whether they actually go out with their A game and try to use the strategy that they think is best against their opponent, or whether they save that for the playoffs, because by that time we'll know what the playoff, have a pretty good idea of when and how they're going to face each other in the playoffs.
Yeah, Adam, $5 super chat. I don't have any issues with Aaron Herrera. He's been exceptional this season with DC United, plus his first MLS All-Star game since he's been in MLS. No problems with that either. Jeff, by the way, $5 super chat. Love the show as always, Josh and Kevin and the rest of the COG crew. Can you please play Panda and Pato Morning Zoo jingle? Okay, so I want you to know it's not even on my soundboard anymore because I had to move stuff around. I only get 9 sounds, and I don't have it on a soundboard, but I was able to pull it up so that way I could play it. So let me see if I can get it to actually play. But here is the Pando and Pato in the morning jingle if it plays. Maybe not. Wait.
Just sing it.
Panda and Pato in the morning. Oh man, so it's like I think it's one of the different ones. Let's see.
You're listening to the Morning Zoo with Panda and Pato.
Yeah, I think I had some different things in there, so it may not be the exact one. I gotta find the good one. Where did the good one go?
Yeah, those were bad. And besides, you called me Pando anyway. So.
Pando. Let's see here. Let's just go through all of my sound clips and see which ones are right. Usually have to wait for him to do it. Okay, that was just the horn. So we're getting closer though. Let's see. Wait for it.
Panda and Pato in the morning.
That was the short one. One more time.
Oh, there it is. That's a good one.
Wait for it.
Welcome to Panda and Pato's Morning Zoo. Pato, and
Panda
in the morning. Panda and Pato in the morning.
Oh, the most annoying 30 seconds. The people are going to turn this off. I don't blame them, by the way. Gary, by the way, $5 super chat. Can an all-star pick decline to play the game, or is the injury the only way out of it? Love the pod. Thank you, gentlemen. Down with LAFC. Here is the deal: is they can decline, but then they have to sit out the next game. Wasn't that the Zlatan rule?
Yeah, Zlatan did not go to Atlanta because of the turf, and then he did not play the next game in Colorado, which was at altitude. I would not be surprised if that was factored in as well. But yes, he did skip a game, and he was suspended for one game.
By the way, I think it's Tony or Tonus, $20 super chat. Dayon's day is coming when he will be recognized for his goal scoring. It doesn't matter if he's a poacher or how he gets a goal, as long as he gets a goal or two or three during a game. I agree, 100%. Like, it's going to be hard. We have the ability, because we watch this team all the time, to be able to see and appreciate things that will not get picked up by national media. And Dayon is one of those things that will not get picked up by national media. Like, it's until he starts scoring bangers, they're just not going to pay attention. That's fine if you're the LA Galaxy, because you know what? Teams in Europe are paying attention to that. Teams in Major League Soccer are paying attention to that. Like, there's lots of people paying attention. It's just not going to get the giant ratings that a lot of people expect it to be. So.
Chicharito was a poacher. That seemed to work out pretty well for him. Robin Van Persie was a poacher. Maybe that's where Chicharito learned to poach. But I mean, a lot of the great goal scorers are poachers. I mean, Zlatan was certainly different, and I think Messi and Ronaldo, I mean, those guys are different. But a lot of the top, like you said, you get the ball in the net, that's good. Doesn't matter how he gets there.
I love Kev, who's in the chat room, says, no, I turned it up more whenever we were playing. Just cranked that. By the way, big shout out to Ray Plaza, who did our intros and our outro music, and we have our own stuff. Anytime I get in the car with my kid anymore, he's like, and I did not do this to him. I played the song once for him because he heard me sort of messing around with it. But he's like, Dad, I want you to play Corner of the Galaxy. And then he wants to hear the thing. And then he sings in the back and he chants and he jumps up and down and the whole deal. So
that's our target audience.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, when you had Kevin on from a real radio guy on, did you play the Morning Zoo stuff for him? What was his take on that?
I did not, because I have more respect for everybody than to do that. So I think he would be embarrassed for what that was. Let's get to the team of the match day. It is Mr. Riqui Puig in the center who got it, but not just Mr. Riqui Puig. Certainly he was on the team of the match day, but the bench included John McCarthy. It also included Miki Amane, and it also included Gabriele Peck for the LA Galaxy. So the Galaxy getting representatives there. Kevin, as you were, I think, correctly pointing out, the recognition of Gabriele Peck, the recognition of some of these other guys, starting to come a little bit more often here in Major League Soccer. The LA Galaxy are making noise. Nobody believes them yet. Certainly, by the way, people picked sort of where they were going to start the season. This very much feels like a little bit of I told you so from last year, which was I always felt the LA Galaxy had enough talent to sort of be in that top four in the Western Conference. And this is the year that I actually get to prove that out. Maybe if I just say it every year, Kevin, eventually I'll be right?
Well, there's always a lag time with this stuff, though. I mean, let's be honest. The Galaxy are in the midst of, at the end of, hopefully, but in the midst of a horrible run of about 8 seasons. And we're more than halfway into the season now. This season, they're doing very well. That the attitude from people outside LA, or the understanding of what's going on here from people outside LA, should begin to change. But I mean, think about how we all look at sports. Like, the Kansas City Royals are always really good, and then you look at the standings, and this year they suck, or whatever team is the one you pick. A lot of times, your mind is just in last year, the last couple of years, and I think if you play word association with fans throughout MLS and say Galaxy, the reception is, it used to be really good, but they kind of suck lately. Well, this season they're having a really good a really good year, and it's just taken people time to catch up. I think they'll be there by the end of the season, though.
This is a big question, and it's one I've been kicking around whenever I've been in the shower thinking in the morning about the LA Galaxy, as I do sometimes. I've been
too much information.
No, you want to picture it all. The water cascading over these thinning locks up top. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Oh my God.
Getting a haircut tomorrow, by the way. This shaggy thing has got to go. Even a guy with no hair on top has to get the hairs cut occasionally. I named this one Kevin because it's short and gray, just like you. But as I was thinking about the LA Galaxy, there were expectations for this year, and the expectations were sort of get that home playoff game, right? That was sort of where I think everybody put things. It feels like the goalposts are moving for the LA Galaxy, right? And maybe they should. Is the way the Galaxy play right now, Kevin, the way they're playing right now, is that affecting what our expectations are of this team? What are the expectations of this LA Galaxy team as you look at it right now? Are they MLS Cup contenders? Are you saying where do you think you have to go? They just beat RSL, and you can certainly look at the Chicho injury as being something that was significant in that game, right? But do we feel like the way the Galaxy are playing, the way they're winning games now, the way they're having this little win streak, are we being sucked in by the moment, or are expectations actually changing for this LA Galaxy team?
Well, and you bring that up as I'm sitting here thinking. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about what does Greg Vanney have to do to get a new contract, and we talked about needs to have a home playoff game, needs to win a playoff game, at least get to the second round. Though it seems like the home playoff game, unless they just go totally in the tank, that's going to happen. You would anticipate they would win that game. Hopefully, I mean, they would be a high seed, so they would be favored to win. But so do you now say, okay, well, Greg Vanney has clearly accomplished those things. Let's sign him to a contract extension now in July as a reward. I don't know. I think maybe you do wait and see how they come out of Leagues Cup and see where they are in September. I think Greg Vanney has earned a new contract. I think maybe you want to sign him before the end of the season to make it clear that he's being rewarded for that. But I mean, this is kind of Greg Vanney's dream job, right? This is where he started. This is where he played in college. This is where he started his pro career. This is where he wants to be. It's not like, I don't think he's getting tons of offers from around the world that he would want anyways. So maybe you have the luxury of sort of waiting to see how this all comes out. But certainly Greg Vanney at this point in time has earned a multi-year contract extension. I guess the question would be, do you wait till the end of the season? Maybe they do collapse, and maybe all of a sudden he's not the flavor of the month anymore. But certainly the way they're playing right now, I would expect that he's going to be around for a few more seasons.
Yeah, I don't know. My whole thing is, like, what are the expectations for the LA Galaxy? I mean, certainly the way that they're playing right now, I don't think. And by the way, maybe since the time they first kicked off, they played against Miami, and Miami has proved to be a very good team. Now, I think it's a different Miami than what the LA Galaxy will play now if you want to go play them. But I really do think that there isn't a team in Major League Soccer that really gives the Galaxy like the Galaxy are nervous around. I don't think that happens. I think this team is starting to grow in confidence, if anything. So Western Conference Finals, or is that what we're talking about now? Where does it end? And is this an MLS Cup contending team? Do we find out here? I mean, I said the next 10 games is going to be really important. That's a third of a season. It's pretty nice of me to be like, oh, the next 10 games, you'll know. It's like, yeah, you're playing another third of the season, you moron. I get it. But the reason I say that is that the Galaxy have 13 games left. That's it. I know I know we're all confused because there's going to be this Leagues Cup break and everything goes in. There are 13 games left. There will be 11 games left, Kevin, after this weekend. That's how quickly these things are going away. There are 13 games left, and after this weekend, there will be 11 games. There will be close to 10 games. I like how I keep moving this. There will be close to 10 games remaining in the MLS season, and we've already talked about how you go to Leagues Cup, you come back, and you have 7 games to play if you're the LA Galaxy. That's it. We are well past, and so is the transfer window, by the way. The transfer window doesn't open up until like the middle of July coming up. I think we still have, 11, 12, 13, 15? It was on July 16th, doesn't it? I can't remember off the top of my head. Chat room will get me. But the bottom line is that transfer window is coming in with like 10 games left in the season. That's not middle away. That's not in the summer. That's not in the winter. What is going on this year because of Leagues Cup and everything else? This is crazy. And the fact that the LA Galaxy are where they are at right now bodes well for their playoff run if they get there. So for me, I think they have moved the goalposts a little bit. And I think I'm expecting more because I've watched them play. You can't tell me that they're not a good team. I've watched them.
Well, in the playoffs are going to be, you got to wait to see who you play in the playoffs. I mean, right now Seattle's at the, in ninth place. They're right at the edge. They're going to have to play that play-in game. And then remember, the first round is going to be best 2 out of 3, which is probably going to work to the Galaxy's advantage, because I don't see the Galaxy losing 2 times in 3 games to anybody, with the possible exception of LAFC. Certainly they would beat Real Salt Lake and I think most other teams. But okay, so Seattle is 9th. We know Seattle has more talent and a good coaching staff. By the time they get to the playoffs, I think that they're going to have that stuff figured out. I think they're going to be tough. Colorado, if you have to play them there, which is possible, they're at the near the top of the table, then you have to go to altitude. I mean, there's a lot of weird things that could happen, and so you can't just look at the standings. Like, for example, right now, I think the Galaxy would play. I think they'd play Minnesota if the playoffs opened right now. They're in 2nd. They would play 7th. They would play Minnesota. You would have to think that that's a winnable game, but we don't know what Minnesota is going to look like in October and November.
Yeah, I know, but don't act like it's so far down the road. Even if people do add players, which they're going to, they're not going to get that many games to play them. They will get them eventually, but you're going to get, it's worse than it has ever been, Kevin. You were getting it's not halfway through the season anymore. You are going to get about 10 games with your guys, 10 games, maybe less, with the guys that you brought in before the playoffs start. That's not a lot. And so I think that in this particular case, and maybe when you look at what Will Kuntz did, and we haven't mentioned his name, but whenever you look at Will Kuntz, and maybe they sat down with Greg Vanney and Will Kuntz and they said, let's get it all done early. 1, because we need to have a better start than we had last year, but 2, because the changes you're going to make because of when the transfer window opens in the summer is not enough time to have it completely turn around your season. It's not like you can just play the last 10 games of the season and be good. That's not going to happen. You have to have already been good and then add those pieces that make you better.
Well, and give Greg, give Will Kuntz a ton of credit, because you and I were talking to him daily during the winter, and it was like, oh, Gabriel Peck is done. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, looks like we're going to get some extra players. It looks like we're going to get Yamani. Oh, maybe not. And it was like wrestling a greased pig, and he just stayed with it and stayed with it and stayed with it, and he never panicked. There were, I think, times when it looked like none of these things were going to happen, and he stayed with it. Paintsill was, a real difficult one as well. He believed in those players, believed that with how they would change the Galaxy, and he refused to give up, and that's why I don't write off Marco Reus just yet. I know that that's a long way from getting done, but when you saw what Will Kuntz did during the winter, if he really believes in Reus, I think he's got a good chance at landing him, because he doesn't give up.
No, he doesn't. He sticks with it. We look at standings. You have Miami at 44 points over in the Eastern Conference, 42 for Cincinnati, 35, a good separation there before you get to New York Red Bulls, and then Columbus at 33, New York City at 32, Charlotte at 32, Nashville at 26, Toronto at 24, and Atlanta at 24. Interesting that the 9th and 8th place teams in the Eastern Conference would be in 11th and 12th place right now in the Western Conference. I don't know, just interesting. I thought the Eastern Conference was going to be the really hard conference. Maybe it still is. But the Western Conference is starting to be a little bit of a booby-trapped side as well. There's lots of good ones here. LAFC and LA Galaxy tied on points, 40 for 1 and 2 in the Western Conference. Real Salt Lake is 3rd with 37 points. Colorado 31, Portland 30, Houston 30, Minnesota 29, Vancouver 28, Seattle 28, Austin 27 below the line, Dallas below the line at 20. St. Louis just fired their coach. That was stupid. 19 points and in 12th place below the line. Kansas City, Peter Vermees, 17 points below the line. 11 points for San Jose, worst team in Major League Soccer, 29th out of 29th for the San Jose Earthquakes.
And I like Seattle, and I just say don't sleep on Seattle. They've lost 1 game since May 14th. It's May 18th. Sorry. They have a lot of good players. They have a coach. I don't think Brian Smetra all of a sudden forgot how to coach over the winter. I think they had a really rough start. They're starting to put things together. Seattle is much better than the 9th place team, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. They're probably going to finish. They're definitely going to finish in the second half of the table, I would think. And they're going to be a real tough first-round playoff opponent for one of the teams that have home field advantage.
Yeah, you can see it coming. We look at the Supporters Shield standings again. Miami, just 4 points in front of the LA Galaxy, played 1 more game than the same number of games. Now they're on the same. Finally, the Galaxy also have 1 more game than Cincinnati, 1 more game than LAFC, 1 more game than Salt Lake. So expect those guys having to make up 1 more game in a very crowded weeks coming up. So I think that's good. Let's talk, Kevin. I know we've been sort of hinting at it and talking about it, but let's just make sure we preview it correctly. The LA Galaxy will face off in El Trafico at the Rose Bowl on Thursday, July 4th. This is El Trafico, the second one of the season. The LA Galaxy 11-3-7, LAFC 12-4-4. As we look at this game will kick off at 7:40 p.m., by the way. 7:40 p.m. is the established kickoff time for this particular game, so don't give it too much time. If you're headed to the Rose Bowl, make sure you get in there early. We look at the all-time matchups. The LA Galaxy currently leading 9 wins, 8 losses, 5 draws against LAFC. The 2-1 win back in April by LAFC at BMO was one of the Galaxy's 3 losses and one of the only times a good team beat the LA Galaxy. Other than that, it's been bad teams beating the LA Galaxy, which was Austin and Chicago, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Correctly. And by the way, if you're going to the game, there'll be a fireworks show afterwards. And it is the Rose Bowl, and so you can probably plan on being out of there by Sunday afternoon, I would think.
That's usually how it goes. Let's see. The first 25,000 LA Galaxy fans in attendance will receive LA Galaxy Rose Bowl posters upon entry at the Rose Bowl Stadium's gates A, B, C, F, and G. Let's see, game presentation. The Condor Squadron will be doing a flyover over the Rose Bowl ahead of kickoff for the match between the LA Galaxy and LAFC.
Are those real condors?
They're a group of aviation enthusiasts dedicated to preserving the memory of those who have served our country over the years. One of their main activities are memorial flights and restored North American aviation AT-6s. Ooh, those are nice trainers. Those are really cool. I think those are the Texans, the AT-6s. I think they're called Texans. Trainers originally flown during World War II. The Condor Squadron fly formation for parades, celebrations, and memorials, as well as perform other community service. Let's see. The Afrojack, we talked about that. Afrojack pregame and halftime DJ set, listed as one of the top 10 DJs in the world multiple times by like DJ Magazine or whichever it was, which I think that they would probably know. So that'll be something for you to watch for. That's pregame and halftime. And then you also have Soccer Fest that's going on. You mentioned the Galaxy Fireworks, the 4th of July match against LAFC at the Rose Bowl marks the continuation of the Galaxy's tradition of hosting a soccer match game on Independence Day. Immediately following the match, the skies over the north end of the Rose Bowl. North end of the Rose Bowl Stadium will light up as the club hosts the longest-running fireworks show on the West Coast for all fans in attendance to enjoy. They didn't have one during COVID, so don't listen to their streak stuff. I told Cosmo to go out there with a sparkler on July 4th just to continue it, and nobody listened to me. So just like to point that out. LA Galaxy Foundation will be auctioning off framed 2011 team-signed MLS Cup champion jerseys. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, online auctions as well, so make sure you check that out. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. The parking lot's open 1:30 p.m. Let's see. The media gates, nobody cares about that. Soccer Fest will go from 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. 5:30 p.m. is when stadium gates open, and then 7:40 p.m. is whenever you have kickoff. Fireworks show approximately 20 minutes after the match there. So I think I covered most of that.
Yeah, and you're not going anywhere for a while. If you've ever tried to get out of the Rose Bowl, trust me.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows. LAFC coming off of a double yellow carded Kevin Cabral game. Kevin Cabral playing for Colorado. LAFC, was it 3-0 on this one? I can't remember off the top of my head now.
Yes, it was Bogus had a hat trick.
Yes, of course. So 3-0 for LAFC, and we've already talked about their winning streak that they have going on and their unbeaten streak. They have a 2-game winning streak. They have an unbeaten streak, though, that is also impressive. Winners of 8 of their last 9. We talked about the LA Galaxy having their last 3 consecutive shutouts in July of 2016, possibility of extending that to 4 games. And I don't even know. I stopped looking at 2016 whenever Alex found it last time. So I don't even know what would happen if for some reason the LA Galaxy were able to shut out LAFC in this game, which, by the way, they should probably do. We talked about Bouanga. He's got 13 goals, 9 assists, Kevin. Kai Kamara, who's been starting a lot of these games as well, 2 goals, 2 assists as of recent playing. And then Bogusz is in there with 12 goals, 5 assists. Tuesta, Ilie Sanchez. You have Tillman with 4 goals and 5 assists. Back there in goal with 1,800 minutes, 20 games played, 20 games started. Hugo Lloris, 23 goals against is his record, 52 saves. He's 12-4-4 as a starter.
Do you know Kai Kamara is now second in MLS history in scoring? He passed Landon Donovan.
He passed Landon Donovan. The guy is just one of those players who just sticks around and can always make a difference. He's also played, I think it feels like, for every MLS team at one time or the other.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
Okay, good. Didn't he go to Cal State Dominguez Hills? Did I remember that?
He did.
Okay.
He did.
Okay, good.
Cal State Dominguez Hills, home of which MLS team?
The LA Galaxy, I'm pretty sure. I've seen that before.
I think that's one of the few teams he hasn't played for.
Correct. Adam, $5 super chat. Glad there's multiple players of the Galaxy on Team of the Week for today. Any update on the Japanese midfielder? I'm not even sure that's real. I just would like to point that out. I don't think, if it is real, I don't think that's happening in the summertime. I think that's a winter move. So just pump the brakes on that one for a little bit. I will do my best to sort of suss that out in the next couple of weeks, because things are going to start moving as the transfer windows open up. The Marco Royce thing is still a thing that I think people should be paying attention to. It is quiet, but it's quiet for all the right reasons. So for right now, I think that's sort of one of those good things. Let me get through some last media stuff here, Kevin, and then we can talk about maybe our predictions for the game and see how it goes. One of the things I did not talk about was that Garces finally got his MLS debut there. Moment of the match. He came on. He got to play. It wasn't for very long, but that's okay. The fact that he was out there and playing is probably a good thing. One of the other things that sort of broke as we look and sort of take a look at the LA Galaxy and what they were able to do, but a new collection has sort of dropped here for the LA Galaxy. And so what we're seeing is that the LA Galaxy and a third kit leak. Now, Kevin, have you paid attention? Have you seen this? This is the possible third kit leak, which, by the way, I have not told is not right. Right? Did I say that correctly? I've not been told this is wrong. So I would suggest that this is probably correct. It's one of those. But the LA Galaxy's third kit, there's some red in there, there's some yellow, there's some green, there's some black. We certainly saw the colorways coming because they've been hinted at on other things. And so I would expect that this debuts sometime in July. Whenever I tried to nail somebody down on when this was coming out, Kevin, I was told I wasn't. Maybe that's what I was told. I was told maybe it comes out whenever you think it might. Maybe it won't. So certainly nothing definitive there.
Let's just flip a coin.
It very well could. Here's the thing. I think at one point we thought it was going to be July 4th where they would debut the third kits. And we now know that was not going to happen. And that's fine, too, because one of the things that certainly MLS wants, Kevin, and I think we can sort of point that out, is that I imagine MLS wants the white LA Galaxy against the black of LAFC. They want the white versus black. They want the contrast. They want the original colors for that. It's like whenever USC and UCLA play each other, you need the cardinal and you need the powdered blues, right? That's important that those teams play in those colors, and it's like that's sort of the history of it. So for the 4th of July game, they absolutely wanted to have LA Galaxy in white and LAFC in black to play that. So I do expect that sometime in the middle of July that we could see this third kit drop, and the collection, the retro collection, certainly something that they're keeping an eye on as we go forward. So that's what we got. Kevin, predictions for said game against LAFC? I mean, does this scream draw? Does this have lasting effects regardless of what happens?
I'm going to go 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. Okay, I can feel it. I understand why you would say that. So that seems perfectly reasonable to me. It is a whiteout. That's one of the things I'd like to remind you. The LA Galaxy have sent stuff out. I know some of the supporters have. So if you're headed there and you're an LA Galaxy supporter, you'll be wanting to wear white. Before we get to my prediction, we're going to get a little bit to AJ De La Garza. AJ tweeted out, coming back to LA to celebrate Luca's 10th birthday at our annual blood drive supporting Children's LA. Can't wait to be back home in the South Bay. This particular blood donation happening on Sunday, August 25th, 2024. It's at Hudson House at 514 North Pacific Coast Highway, Redondo Beach, California. And there will be some other events announced soon, but the 10th birthday for Luca De La Garza, who obviously captured everyone's hearts and minds whenever AJ was playing for the LA Galaxy. Which season was that? Was that 2014 that happened? Yeah, it would be. Yeah, 10 years. Yeah, 2014. Crazy. I think I've told the story about the Luca Knows Heart game, which if you're a longtime LA Galaxy fan, you know that. Galaxy ended up putting a whipping on a team, and everybody was wearing different shirts, and it was just a really tough time for the De La Garzas as they were going through that with the birth of Luca, and then a little bit of survival there for a while, and then unfortunately his untimely passing there. But they came back and they played in that game. I was on a plane going to Denver, and I was watching it through like crappy Wi-Fi trying to stream the game as it was coming through. And I remember seeing the game scored and hearing the announcers and watching the tears on the field and in the stands, the whole deal. So AJ, like always, is a good friend of the show and is always in our minds here at Corner of the Galaxy. Great guy. So glad he's going to be back in, but that's something that you might want to plan ahead for. Let's see. Anything else?
Yeah, I got one thing. When you put up the Supporters Shield standings and Miami's up there at the top, as I'm talking about Seattle rising, you can expect Miami to fall, perhaps even not just in Supporters Shield standing, but maybe even second, third, or further in the Eastern Conference. And here's why: all four of their former Barcelona players, which would be Messi, Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez, and Sergio Busquets, made the All-Star team. All those guys are 9 years older than Christ, and they are going to have to go there or be suspended. Messi's playing right now in Copa America. It's going to be really hot on the East Coast, especially in Miami. I just think that this team is going to fade down the stretch, and I think there's a good opportunity for a West Coast team, be it LAFC or the Galaxy, to move up those Supporters Shield standings. And Miami probably going to start the playoffs on the road, but I don't think, and they got Leagues Cup too,
right?
And they're defending titleist in Leagues Cup, so I think they're going to actually put a decent team on the field. I don't know that they're going to be much of a factor in the playoffs. Certainly, they're very talented, but they're also very old, and I think the weather and this schedule is going to wear them down. So look for Seattle to rise and Miami to fall in the second half. That's my prediction.
You heard it here from Mr. Kevin Baxter. Looking at El Trafico, I'm going to say it's a 3-2 game. Galaxy get the win. It is going to be absolutely nuts and crazy. It's going to be crazier than any El Trafico game you've ever watched. There's so much on the line. I think there's two very disciplined teams who are going to go up against each other, so I wouldn't be surprised if it starts out pretty cagey or even boring as everybody tries to feel each other out. I could see this being a chess match, but it's going to devolve, and it's going to get into the craziness. It's going to get into all the CONCACAF crazy that you've been seeing in some of this Copa America stuff too. It's just not going to be a good game at the end. It's going to be a crazy game full of emotion and goals. So I'm calling the LA Galaxy winners 3-2. Yeah. Yes,
I think LAFC gets out in front, and they're trying to close out the game, and they're going to park the bus a little bit. But I like this Galaxy team, the heart that they've shown. There's so many points they've grabbed in the last 10 minutes, even in stoppage time. I think they fight back and draw this game. I just think, with the shutout streak and all that, LAFC just has way too many offensive weapons now that Bogues is going. Way too many offensive weapons to expect another shutout from the Galaxy, but I do think they come back and get the draw.
It's gonna be an interesting one. By the way, you said scoring first. Let's look at the LA Galaxy and scoring first just before we go. The LA Galaxy's last 6 games they have scored first. They have won all of those except for one game, that game in Chicago. So that's something to keep an eye on. If you wanted to look at what happens when the LA Galaxy score first, they're 9-1-2, have 29 goals for, 14 goals against whenever they allow the first goal. The Galaxy are 2-2-3. They've scored 12 goals and allowed 13. Before we close everything out, a super chat from executive producer Herb, $14 super chat. Herb, it's always great to have you in this chat. Glad to have you. He says, hey Josh, hey Kevin, 100% off topic. It was nearly impossible getting my hands on a copy of the LA Times, the Jerry West tribute article. 9 liquor stores and 5 7-Elevens. Found it at CVS. There you go. So Herb is the one guy who actually goes out and looks for
one guy who, we wondered. It's kind of like Where's Waldo. We have one copy of the paper that we print every day, and we hide it all over the Southland. So he found it. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is absolutely. All right. Anything else, Mr. Kevin? Are you all good? We can close everything down for this one.
Used to have 1.1 million subscribers, and now we're hiding the one edition in a CVS.
That's how it works, apparently. All right. If you are looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter,
and why would you?
Yeah, I don't know. Some people do. At KBaxter11 is where you can find it. LATimes.com for all of his wonderful writing. Go check it out. Just back from a great trip. Has a good story, I'm sure, coming out for that. So pay attention. In tomorrow's LA Times, Kevin, is it tomorrow? It's close enough. You don't have to. It's fine. Yes. No, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We get a story tomorrow about El Trafico.
There we go. Okay, very good. So tomorrow, an El Trafico piece in LATimes.com. That's where we want. If you're looking for me on Twitter and X, at Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com, anywhere you can find our podcast, that's where you can find us. Corner of the Galaxy, that's us. That's what we do. LA Galaxy facing off against LAFC in one of the most anticipated El Traficos in all of Major League Soccer history. It will be at the Rose Bowl on July 4th, 7:30 p.m., 7:40 is your kickoff time. I hope everybody has a wonderful time. Stay safe. Happy Independence Day. Come back and see us real soon. after the LA Galaxy and the Rose Bowl game. For Mr. Kevin, the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.